You say you've solved Tiger's Thanksgiving mystery. Tell us what happened.
Yeah, well, at least what I've done is I filled in a lot of the details. I talked to two of Elon's friends, and here's what they end up saying happened. The day before Thanksgiving, Tiger knew that the National Enquirer story was going to run, and he actually convinced his girlfriend, Rachel Yucatel, to call Elon and to tell her, we've met only a couple of times, we're just platonic friends. And Elon bought that. It bought Tiger 24 hours. But the next day, information from the National Enquirer was coming out that they had an affair in Australia, that they had met. Elon confronted him, and they had an argument. And what does Tiger do? Does he admit the truth, come forward and say, yeah, it's really me? No. Takes an Ambien and goes to sleep and leaves his cell phone. He so underestimates his wife, Elon, that he doesn't think she's going to do anything. She turns into detective, and she opens up the cell phone, she looks through his text messages, and she finds one that really hits her, in which he writes to Yucatel and says, you're the one I really loved. And then she decides to text Yucatel and pretend she's Tiger. She says, I miss you. When am I going to see you again? Yucatel sends back text that says, essentially, I'm surprised you're awake, which tells Elon that the two had communicated that night because Yucatel knew that Tiger had gone to sleep. And then Elon does the great thing. She calls Yucatel up directly. She confronts Rachel. She says, I knew you were the one. Rachel has an expletive and hangs up the phone. And from that point on, Joyce, sort of all hell breaks loose.
Okay, Gerald, I have to say, is any of this stuff verified? I mean, how do we know all of this?
Oh, well, I'll tell you how. Okay, I'll tell you how I know it. I mean, people who don't do reporting for a living think that all you do as a reporter is you pick up a telephone, somebody gives you a number, you call them up and say, by the way, I'd like to know the details of what happened the night that Tiger and Elon had a big blowout, and they just tell you. That's not it at all. What you do is what I've been doing, which is for the past 2 months, you keep calling the same people, the same sources that you know. You hope that eventually one of the dozen that you're calling in either Tiger camp or in the Yucatel camp or in the Elon camp will finally open up the door a little bit and talk to you. And in this case, because things are coming to a head on the issue of whether she's going to get a divorce, I think she's ready to have a few of her friends. She's not saying this, nor are the friends, but they want to present the fact that they think she's not only the victim here, that she was aggrieved, but that she was smart enough to take things into her own hand and find out what happened. So I was lucky to be there, get it from one person, and then go to another person to get it confirmed.
But is Elon squeaky clean in all of this herself?
Well, I'll tell you, squeaky clean in this sense. She never had, as far as I can find, an extramarital affair. She wasn't going out and partying. She stayed home with the kids.
Well, you don't know that for sure.
Well, I'll tell you how I know it. Wait, hold on a second.
All right.
She was never photographed by any of the tabloids. She was never photographed by a TMZ or never had her on a click. She was never at a party. We never saw her with a drunken glass in her hand. She was Tiger Woods' wife. And something else interesting, when she used to go to the tournaments, where was she? She was boring, they considered her. If you talk to the paparazzi, which I have, out in L.A. and New York, they didn't follow her because they considered her a boring target. Boring actually means you had a pretty good life, leading it in a clean way.
I see. Well, now you're saying also that Tiger took Ambien that night. Does that explain his erratic behavior, or did he crash that car because she hit it with the golf club?
Well, it could be both, but the Ambien certainly didn't help. One of the things interesting is both of these acquaintances of Elon tell me, Joy, that he had trouble sleeping, Elon said, so he took Ambien regularly. He took enough that night to knock him out. And when she got off the phone with Rachel, she woke him up yelling. And what does he do? He makes a major mistake in judgment. He locks himself in the back of the room for a few minutes. When he comes out, she's able to get the cell phone out of his hand. And what's the text message? You know, text messages don't disappear. They're around. They're there to verify. The people who have them is on Tiger's phone and on Rachel Yucatel's phone. He sends Rachel a message that says, in essence, and I'm paraphrasing here because these people didn't see it, which is, she knows, which means Elon knows, I'm packing, divorce could be coming. And at that point, she starts pummeling him on his chest and arms with her fist and then grabs a golf club. That's when he's out of the house, barefoot, into the car. Okay, so can she be charged with anything in this case? Well, the only honorable thing that Tiger Woods did that night, or maybe over those couple of days, is when the police arrived, he said to them, by the way, this was, she was trying to get me out of the car. That's why the rear windows are broken. The two people I spoke to said they don't know when the windows were broken. They didn't know if Tiger had a chipped tooth. They didn't know if he had been hit in his face. So he clearly played that down. But he also was helping himself that night because he didn't want to tell the cops that they had a major marital discord. Right. So he's kind of covering up for her, and I guess that's not okay.